And thanks, Tucker. Welcome to Hannity. This is a Fox News alert. Welcome to Hannity. And tonight, explosive new evidence in what is becoming the biggest scandal, or at least one of them in American history. Now, it's something we have been saying would be exposed for months. According to new reports tonight from The Hill's John Solomon and Circa News' Sarah Carter, there are brand new FBI documents that show the Russian nuclear industry officials kicked back millions and millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation, all while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and helped approve the Uranium One deal, which gave Moscow, Russia, Vladimir Putin control of 20% of American uranium, the foundational materials for nuclear weapons. And tonight, they're also reporting the FBI now has evidence that Russia for years has been doing this, and they're reporting the FBI has evidence that literally they use bribery to gain control over America's uranium industry, all while the Obama administration did nothing. And the Clintons benefited to the tune of nearly $145 million. You want a real Russia collusion story? We've got it. Also, is Congress now going to do its job? Will they investigate these explosive reports immediately? Will the special counsel, Robert Mueller, start looking into this Russian plot to control American uranium? And is the left-wing mainstream media, are they going to stop pushing their lies and conspiracy theories to you, the American people? Will they ever tell us the truth? And that's not all we have tonight. The FBI has confirmed that, in fact, the disgraced former director, James Comey, drafted a letter exonerating Hillary Clinton months before interviewing any key witnesses in the email server scandal. We're going to cover all of this in tonight's breaking news opening monologue. All right, so The Hill's John Solomon, his colleague over there, Allison Spann, are once again out with an explosive new report. Take a look at this headline from today. FBI uncovered Russian bribery plot before Obama administration approved controversial nuclear deal with Moscow. Now, here's the headline from Sarah Carter. Russia, nuclear firm under FBI investigation, was allowed to purchase U.S. uranium supply. According to these breaking news reports, back in 2009, the FBI, they started gathering evidence, including recordings and emails and witnesses that they talked to, showing that the Russian nuclear industry officials used bribes, kickbacks, money laundering, and other illegal tactics to expand Russia's influence over America's uranium market. Now, in the Hill report, they explain that despite all of the evidence that they had of wrongdoing against Russia, the Obama Justice Department, for some unknown reason, chose not to act and pursue charges. What did they do instead? The Obama administration then went on to approve business deals that benefited Russia, Putin, Moscow greatly, while these threats to our national security were actually going on. These include the 2010, we've talked about it a lot, now we have more details, that Uranium One deal. Hillary Clinton, she signed off on it, she helped approve it. That gave Vladimir Putin control over 20% of America's uranium. Uranium is the foundational material so you can build nuclear weapons. We'll have a lot more on that in just a second. And the 2011 deal, that made it easier for the Russian nuclear subsidiary to sell uranium to U.S. nuclear power plants. Now, the FBI officials told Sarah Carter at Circa News that the Bureau's bribery investigation could have actually been stopped. However, this part is inexcusable. Both reports highlight how the Obama administration kept all of this evidence that they had of Russian bribery secret from Congress and the American people until 5 years after the approval of that Uranium One deal. And when the DOJ finally did go public, this was 2015, it was only to announce a single charge against the Russian at the center of the bribery scheme, and they played it on the down low. Now, keep in mind, after President Trump won in November, President Obama and his administration, they were telling anyone who would listen, Russia interfered with our election. Russia was creating a direct threat to American democracy. Well, if that's the case, why, when they had mountains of evidence that we will reveal tonight of Russian bribery going back to 2009, why then did the Obama administration, and Hillary in particular, sign off on the sale of 20% of America's uranium to Vladimir Putin and the Russians. And speaking of Uranium One, according to the new report from The Hill, the FBI has evidence, including eyewitness accounts, that, quote, Russian nuclear officials routed, pay attention, routed millions of dollars to the U.S. designed to benefit former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's charitable foundation during the exact time Secretary of State Hillary Clinton served on a government body that provided a favorable decision to Moscow. Uranium One, sound familiar? And by the way, we can't forget Peter Schweitzer. He originally exposed this Uranium One deal in his best-selling book, Clinton Cash. Now, all of that is why for months on this program, I have been telling you, Uranium One will be one of the biggest scandals this country has ever seen. Just in case you forgot, let's remind you. Then there's the real Russia collusion story, the Uranium One deal, which I predict will be the biggest news to come out in the next year or two, where the Secretary of State, remember, she approved handing over up to 20% of America's uranium, the foundational material of nuclear weapons, to Vladimir Putin and the Russians, all while people involved in the deal in Canada, they kicked back over $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. Bill Clinton doubled his speaking fees in Moscow. Tonight, with this new evidence, what we have discovered is the evidence against the Clintons is overwhelming. It is incontrovertible. Hillary Clinton and her husband sold out America to the Russians while millions of dollars flowed to their family foundation. And in the process, Clinton helped create a massive national security risk for every man, woman, and child, giving Vladimir Putin control over American uranium. That material, as I said, you use it to make nuclear warheads. Now, if the liberal, ideological, mainstream media and the Democrats in this country that have been screaming Russia, Russia, Russia for all these months, if they want real Russia collusion, we've got it for them. The evidence is right here. It doesn't even need to be investigated. Just corroborate it. So it's time tonight, and I'm calling on Congress. I'm calling on Robert Mueller, the special counsel. Stop wasting our time and our money trying to find evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. You've been on this for a year. So far, you haven't presented one shred of evidence. Except now you can actually follow facts and evidence that we do have on the record. I'm also calling out the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, tonight. He recused himself from the Russia probe. He needs to now do the same. The evidence now shows that Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration, put this country in danger, handing Russia America's uranium, even though, as the Hill reported, there were crimes, bribery, and worse, and blackmail being committed. And where was the liberal mainstream media during all of this? The media that's been running wild with all kinds of conspiracy theories about President Trump and Russia for months and months and months with no evidence? Well, here are some of the more unhinged examples of the left. Listen to their language. It applies to them tonight. It applies to the Clintons tonight. It applies to Obama tonight. Watch this.
But first, we want to start with This Week in Russiagate.
It is as if there are no shoes on the Trump human centipede that are not about Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia.
This cloud about collusion with Russia will hang over him no matter where he stands.
It certainly feels like we're in the opening stages of a devastating political chapter in American history. Evidence is mounting for the president's meddling in the Russia probe.
Tom Friedman said the election hacking is at the caliber of a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree with that.
Donald Trump now sits at the threshold of impeachment.
I personally think it's over. I don't think there's anything that can be done that can stop this at this point. Cacophony, this gushing of lies, problems, questions, chaos that will stop this presidency in its tracks.
You told the Washington Post last week that, quote, there's a smell of treason in the air when it comes to this investigation.
A lot of people are afraid to use the T word, treason, but in the end, that's what people are investigating.
It does look like collusion. It does look like he's listening to Putin more than he is American intelligence. And frankly, I've never seen that before.
The media has been breathless and hysterical over the Russia coverage. Yet, have you heard any of them even mention Hillary Clinton colluding with Vladimir Putin on Uranium One? Has the media that's supposed to be trusted ever reported on the millions of dollars that were poured into the Clinton Foundation as a result of this deal? Will the press even now now bother to look at John Solomon and Sarah Carter's reporting and do their own digging? And while we're at it, did anyone in the media, aside from this show, did they ever ask Julian Assange about who gave him? He's the one that has the information. Who gave him Hillary Clinton and the DNC's emails? We actually asked him, and Julian Assange told us repeatedly, 5 times that I've interviewed him, it wasn't the Russians. There's also the fake news Christopher Steele dossier that was funded in part by the Democratic donors. Guess what? That dossier relied heavily on Russian sources, a false smear to then-candidate Donald Trump. Now, some of the media and some Democrats even repeated these bogus claims. Remember, the Ritz, hookers, urinating on a bed, they paid for those lies. By the way, is that not spreading Russia propaganda? Is that not fake news? Is that not Russia trying to influence America's election with fake news? Catherine Herridge is reporting tonight that 2 members of the firm behind that fake news dossier have been subpoenaed to appear before Congress, as it turns out, tomorrow. Now, the lawyer for Fusion GPS is saying tonight his client has been advised to plead the Fifth if they're forced to show up. You know what? If members of Fusion GPS, if they don't want to appear before Congress, they're refusing to talk, let's hold them in contempt of Congress. Maybe they'll go to jail. Let's see. But back to the media. They continue in this country to be exposed as a bunch of rigid, radical, left-wing ideologues. They do not care about the truth. And as I've been saying for years, journalism in America is dead. It's buried. We have an informational crisis in this country. And it's why you, the American people, no longer trust the press, nor should you. Look at this PBS Marist poll from over the summer. A combined 68% said they have not very much or no trust at all in the media, and for good reason. The media is completely abusively biased in this country. They're a bunch of overpaid, rigid, left-wing, radical ideologues, and they no longer care about truth. For example, the network evening newscast tonight, even though these massive news stories are out about Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration, colluding with the Russians, giving them uranium, kickbacks to the Clinton Foundation, they didn't even report on it. It's because it doesn't fit their narrative, their talking points. There's also the fact that those stories are proof positive, that Russia collusion hysteria is now starting to boomerang back on the Democrats. It's something, by the way, I predicted would happen back in June. Take a look. I've been saying that this is all going to boomerang back. No evidence by anybody of any Russia collusion, 11 months of media lying and conspiracy theories. But it did open up the door that, okay, now we got to look at Loretta. Now we got to look at Hillary. And I would argue Hillary is going to be right behind Loretta Lynch in terms of investigation issues. What I said back in June is exactly what is happening now, and it's only going to get worse for Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the Democrats, the media, and all on the left. Also tonight, the FBI. They released proof that the former director of the FBI, James Comey, had been drafting a letter to exonerate Hillary Clinton in her email server scandal months before interviewing key witnesses, including the former Secretary of State herself. Does this not prove what I've been saying? We don't have equal justice under the law. We have a 2-tier justice system in this country, one for the Clintons and one for the rest of us. And it also proves James Comey acted inappropriately. He deserved to be fired. Now, Comey played politics. He let Clinton off the hook, even though she had secret, top secret, special access program, classified information stored, let's see, in a mom and pop shop bathroom closet, which, by the way, mishandling of classified information, that's a crime. Destroying classified information, that's a crime. Deleting 33,000 subpoenaed emails, oh, that's called obstruction of justice. And unlike the mainstream media, we care about the truth here. We care about facts. It's why we continue to expose all of these scandals. And tonight, a new level. Breaking news, and this will now come back. Bribery, kickbacks, quid pro quo, America's national security at stake. Joining us exclusively, John Solomon. He's with The Hill. Sarah Carter, Circa News. Sarah, let me start with you. We're talking about bribery. We're talking about blackmail. We're talking about what else that was going on that the Obama Justice Department knew and still gave Putin, Moscow, Russia 20% of our uranium, and the money goes to the Clinton Foundation. Let's talk about it.
Well, back in 2009, the FBI was actually approached by a businessman, by an American businessman, who said, look, I have information on the Russians, and I'm going to give this to you. And they said, would you work with us? They came to an agreement. He went inside. For 15 months, Sean, for 15 months, the FBI was investigating the Russian nuclear industry and the agencies. They knew that there were kickbacks. They knew that there were bribes. And they knew how dangerous this was to national security. And 15 months had passed in the investigation. And then CFIUS, 13 members of the governing board, approved the Uranium One deal to the Russians. I mean, this was something that I contacted FBI officials tonight, FBI sources that were there during that time, and they said the FBI would have had all of this information. It would have been their duty on the board, on the CFIUS board, to report that information. And so now what I'm thinking is, if they did report that information, it's got to be out there. We've got to be able to FOIA it. We've got to be able to see these documents and know what was going on and why the United States government decided to approve a deal that would give 20% of U.S. uranium assets to Vladimir Putin, Russia.
Let me go to you, John, and your report in the Hill. So the FBI basically has evidence in the form of documents, emails, financial records, eyewitnesses proving the Russians used bribery, kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering to secure the Uranium One deal, and about $145 million kickback to the Clinton Foundation. And they knew it in 2009? They knew it before they even approved the deal?
Yeah, you said in your opening monologue that the Democrats are concerned that Russia's tampered with our election results in 2016. Well, 6 years before that, they tampered with our nuclear security. The case proved that the Russia's nuclear industry had bribed their way and compromised the American trucking company that moved all of Russia's uranium in the United States. That's a national security threat. And for 2 years, the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, and everybody who's been quoted has said the Obama administration had no knowledge of a national security threat, and that's why they didn't have any problem approving the Uranium One deal. Well, guess what? Tonight, we have a real national security threat that was proven in real time in 2009, and it's going to be interesting to see what Congress does. Tomorrow morning, Chuck Grassley has a hearing with Jeff Sessions on the seat, and I think you might see some interesting questions asked.
All right, and Sarah, and this is stunning, that the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, hid the information. He knew about the bribery, the kickbacks, the extortion, the money, and he also knew, as well as Hillary, and had to sign off along with Hillary Clinton on the deal, even though we know that they're trying to influence every aspect of our security and get control over America's uranium. They still allowed the deal to go through?
Well, and these are many of the same players, right? You had Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein then was head of this investigation when he was in Maryland looking at the trucking company. And remember this, you have a trucking company that's moving American uranium that is involved in bribery, kickbacks, and all kinds of issues. And they're moving a national security asset, uranium. And you have Andrew McCabe, who's the deputy director of the FBI now, who was also charged with that investigation. So there's a lot of questions here still.
Is Mueller involved in this?
Yes, and Mueller, who was in charge then.
How does he investigate
FBI
himself? So we got Mueller having to investigate his boss now, Rod Rosenstein, who also, and Andrew McCabe of the FBI, and probably James Comey. They all knew about this.
That's exactly what we're looking at. These are people who actually knew about this. Now, it's up to Congress to ask those questions, to find out, why did you decide to allow the CFIUS deal to go through with Uranium One? Why did you vote yes on this? What was the FBI
they knew the Russians were trying
at?
to influence all of our uranium in this country. All right, here's the question. I have a final exit question, and we'll have more on this tonight. Did the DOJ, did they deliberately jeopardize America's national security, knowing all of this was going on? In other words, the kickbacks, bribery, extortion, money laundering, allowing this deal to go through without presenting the evidence? And how did Hillary sign off on it and get all this money to the foundation? John, did they risk national security?
I think there's some things we don't know yet. It is possible the Justice Department told the CFIUS members, and they still voted to approve this deal. And it's possible it was kept.
You mean they told them about bribery, extortion, kickbacks, and money laundering, and they still would allow the deal to go through by the Russians in our own country?
We don't know the answer to that yet. That's the question, and I can confirm tonight, I'm reporting this out tonight, Senator Grassley, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, began an investigation last week specifically asking all the CFIUS members, did you know there was a criminal investigation? This is going to become one of the most important investigations that are going to evolve this fall.
Sarah, I'll give you the last word. What's coming up?
Yeah,
How far is this story going to go? Can you give us a hint where we're headed?
I think the story is going to go far. I know as well that Senator Grassley had started this investigation last week and that he had asked very detailed questions to the current CFIUS board members. And those board members will now seek the information that he's asking for, because they're going to be looking at, this is a whole new board that's going to be answering these questions. So it's going to be up to them to tell the truth and to deliver the answers to the American people. And it's going to be up to us to keep pushing this so that answers are delivered, because I do believe national security was at risk. I mean, according to every source I've spoken to.
They knew about it. This is what it proves. There really was a Russia conspiracy, but it's not what the media reported. Great work, both of you. It's amazing the work you guys do, and the rest of the media is ignorant. Now, Peter Schweitzer, also Greg Jarrett. We'll talk more about this. We have a lot more to come on this. Also, President Trump makes a big push tonight for a key part of his agenda. Newt Gingrich is here, and so much more straight ahead.
We believe that our great American flag should be treated with reverence and respect, and that young Americans should be taught to love our country, honor our anthem, and proudly recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, that was the president earlier tonight during a speech in front of the Heritage Foundation, again taking aim at NFL players who kneeled during our national anthem. He also made a major push for a key part of his agenda, tax reform, which every American needs. Watch this.
We need the help of the Heritage Foundation and everyone here tonight to get our tax cuts through the House, through the Senate, and to my desk for signature. So let's give our country the best Christmas present of all: massive tax relief.
We need it, and the president got a big boost today on this front. Washington Post reporting, quote, McCain endorses budget bill and win for GOP tax reform effort. Joining us now, author of the soon-to-be best-selling book Vengeance, just out last week, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. I know you're aware of this Uranium One deal, and now we've got documents, we've got emails, we've got financial records, we've got eyewitnesses that show they knew. The Obama administration knew in 2009 about Russia, top officials, bribery, kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering, and they still signed off on the Uranium One deal, 20% of our uranium in the hands of Russia. And keep in mind, the same Russia that they've been screaming about for a year. Your thoughts on this development?
Well, let me say, first of all, the best news I heard tonight was your report that Senator Grassley is beginning to ask very serious questions, and I hope that the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to open a full-blown investigation. I also hope that Chairman Goodlatte in the House and the House Judiciary Committee will do the same. These are unbelievable charges. You know, if this is true, and there are two fronts here. There's the Russian front, which is unbelievable, and there's the Comey drafting an exoneration of Hillary 2 months before he interviewed her. Now, both of those indicate levels of corruption and dishonesty on a scale that I can't remember in American history. I mean, this whole thing coming together right now, and the way it's coming together, the people who are involved. I mean, I think the average American is going to demand that the House and Senate hold full-blown, clear public hearings, put this stuff on the record. I want to see the draft versions of what Comey was writing 2 months before he even...
Oh, we have it.
We got him. It's no wonder they didn't put her... Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Signed, sealed, delivered, exoneration. Doesn't matter, you mishandle classified information, destroy classified information, and you destroy subpoenaed emails. Why do I think I'd be in jail and you'd be calling me on the phone on Saturday night?
Well, I mean, think about it. If you're Senator Bob Menendez and you're being tried for something, and you suddenly learn that what the Clintons did may be 50 to 100 times bigger and involve national security with Russia, and there's nothing happening to them. I mean, if I was Menendez, I'd think, wow, talk about justice not being fair. And then you look at Comey, who is this great, virtuous person in the Washington press corps, and you start saying, wait a second, he's writing an exoneration 2 months before he interviews her. No wonder they didn't put her under oath.
Never mind the
whole
dossier.
thing was rigged.
All the media, the Democratic politicians, they quoted the dossier that they used Russian sources for. This is where the media in this country hurts the American people, because they don't do their job. They're agenda driven. They've made more mistakes in the last year than I've ever seen it. And I thought that it was bad when you were Speaker. American people, will they ever tell us the truth? And that's not all we have tonight. The FBI has confirmed that, in fact, the disgraced former director, James Comey, drafted a letter exonerating Hillary Clinton months before interviewing any key witnesses in the email server scandal. We're going to cover all of this in tonight's breaking news opening monologue. All right, so the Hill's John Solomon, his colleague over there, Allison Spann, are once again out with an explosive new report. Take a look at this headline from today. FBI uncovered Russian bribery plot before Obama administration approved controversial nuclear deal with Moscow. Now, here's the headline from Sarah Carter. Russia, nuclear firm under FBI investigation, was allowed weapons. And tonight, they're also reporting the FBI now has evidence that Russia for years has been doing this, and they're reporting the FBI has evidence that literally they used bribery to gain control over America's uranium industry, all while the Obama administration did nothing. And the Clintons benefited to the tune of nearly $145 million. You want a real Russia collusion story? We've got it. Also, is Congress now going to do its job? Will they investigate these explosive reports immediately? Will the special counsel, Robert Mueller, start looking into this Russian plot to control American uranium? And is the left-wing mainstream media, are they going to stop pushing their lies and conspiracy theories to you to purchase U.S. uranium supply? According to these breaking news reports, back in 2009, the FBI, they started gathering evidence, including recordings and emails and witnesses that they talked to, showing that the Russian nuclear industry officials used bribes, kickbacks, money laundering, and other illegal tactics to expand Russia's influence over America's uranium market. Now, in the Hill report, they explain that despite all of the evidence that they had of wrongdoing against Russia, the Obama Justice Department, for some unknown reason, chose not to act and pursue charges. What did they do instead? The Obama administration then went on to... And thanks, Tucker. Welcome to Hannity. This is a Fox News alert. Welcome to Hannity. And tonight, explosive new evidence in what is becoming the biggest scandal, or at least one of them in American history. Now, it's something we have been saying would be exposed for months. According to new reports tonight from the Hill's John Solomon and Circa News' Sarah Carter, there are brand new FBI documents that show the Russian nuclear industry officials kicked back millions and millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation, all while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and helped approve the Uranium One deal, which gave Moscow, Russia, Vladimir Putin control of 20% of American uranium, the foundational materials for nuclear weapons. Approved business deals that benefited Russia, Putin, Moscow greatly, while these threats to our national security were actually going on. These include the 2010, we've talked about it a lot, now we have more details, that Uranium One deal. Hillary Clinton, she signed off on it, she helped approve it. That gave Vladimir Putin control over 20% of America's uranium. Uranium is the foundational material so you can build nuclear weapons. We'll have a lot more on that in just a second. And the 2011 deal, that made it easier for the Russian nuclear subsidiary to sell uranium to U.S. nuclear power plants. Now, the FBI officials told Sarah Carter at Circa News that the Bureau's bribery investigation